Okay, I am here with the legend, Bif Naked. I will save everyone excess biographical information. As doing like a little research on you, I think it's been done, but
You're
you've lived
very
quite the
kind.
life. Yeah,
I think everyone has actually. I mean, I'm biased because I'm Generation X, so I think every Generation X kid has probably lived 10 lifetimes more than any generation that has come after us. But I'm biased, Of
yeah,
course I am. Everyone says this.
yeah. I'm already starting to feel like a distance from the Zoomers, as a millennial.
Interesting. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Very
Uh,
much so.
how would you define like Gen X? Like, what are the defining? I know I could define a boomer pretty easy, but Gen X, I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, I don't know either. Like, so the boomers, I guess, like we used to think that the boomers were all yuppies.
Yeah,
And now, but because they got corporate jobs and because they, they wanted to get houses, they had, two kids or all this kind of stuff seemed to come easier for them. I think the millennials were kind of the same because they didn't want to be Gen X. I mean, we were all slackers. We all dropped out of university, all of us, and we still ride skateboards at 50. And, all the people we idolized when we were 25 were 50-year-olds that were riding skateboards. I mean, it's sad. And I just think, yeah, we've become what we used to think of the hippies.
yeah,
They were all had like gray hair and they just talked about hippie things that it was so cool, love, man, the time of love, free love, all this stuff. We were like, man, these people are like, the smoke affected their brain, like listening to pop.
yeah.
And now that's us. That is us because the millennials were like, they all got degrees, almost all of them, but they can't, there's no jobs. So,
Yeah.
I mean, actually, they're not in any better position than the Gen Xers slackers were, except they have student debt on top of it. And yeah, I think that we have a lot in common in many ways. But now the generation that's coming up now, like my manager's youngest has just turned 12, for example, and it's a different ball game. Like it's just so different. Everything is only online. My mother punished us by taking away our curling iron. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you have to cut the Wi-Fi because you
Yeah.
can't take a kid's phone because they need a phone because they have to call you at lunch. Like, how did that happen? I'm not sure, but you can't take a phone. So you have to cut the Wi-Fi to punish kids, but they'll find it. They'll find some other
Yeah, they'll find a
Wi-Fi.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I guess with the access to everything too, like you've been in the music game to see various changes in format and such. Do you think that music has become a little bit I guess I'm like loading the question, but do you think the value of music, I suppose, has changed?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And I think that music will always be of value to the listener, or to the fan of that artist. I think that it's always going to take a person on an emotional journey, whatever it is, and it's going to allow us to let out steam. So I think for the artist, I think the main thing about music is it's always been cathartic to write it and then performing it, get out of here. There's
Yeah.
nothing better.
There's nothing better.
To have a nose full of snot and sweat and like just
Yeah.
give it. There's nothing better. It's very, very cathartic, and same with writing it. That hasn't changed, but not being able to do it as often has changed for a lot of bands that relied on it for a living.
Yeah,
Like I think
particularly
since
in the world of like punk and sort of the more DIY world,
Oh
without a doubt.
yeah. Yeah, because I mean, and when we couldn't, when we did door deals or when we relied on merch, for example, that's kind of been taken away. A lot of bands have pivoted. They have a lot of online stores, online content, streaming shows, which, in from my experience doing them, they kind of, just kind of sucks. It's just,
Yeah.
I wasn't one of those artists that really looked forward to playing on Facebook Live every Friday. A lot of artists did that, but ultimately that's a free thing. So for artists to then other artists turn around and say, "Well, we're going to charge for this streaming show," people were like, "Well, yeah, we ain't going to pay for
Yeah.
it," and fair enough. Why should they? These other artists aren't making them pay for it, so in the last 2 years of, all the bands pivoting, it's been a bit of trial and error, I think, for everyone. And I think people got frustrated. But, there's a lot of people who aren't qualified to do anything else. Everyone
Yeah.
dropped out of university and basically did, punk rock or power rock or prog rock or metal or whatever they've been doing for 30 years.
Yeah.
And now you've got an entire, bunch of like thousands of people in even our techs, like the roadies, like you have thousands of people who are like in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they have no training. They can't actually, get a job other than like, something that's requires no training.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a very
Back
interesting
to
times
square one,
indeed.
Yeah.
Kind of. And I think that's daunting for a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to be a dishwasher.
Yeah.
I
did that
like
for a long time.
So did I. And that's why I said, and I became a dishwasher in Winnipeg I forget what year. I was 18. Even though they were hiring servers, waitresses, I kind of left the waitressing to the preppy girls. And I wanted to apply for the job I knew I would get hired for, because I really needed a job. We were on welfare, for God's sake. And I got the job as a dishwasher. I loved it. I folded my smokes up in my sleeve. And all of the staff asked me every day if I spoke English, which I found was very interesting.
That's because you were a
dishwasher?
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Why else would I be washing dishes? And I found that really gave me a lot of information about the world we live in at a young age. And I felt it was really an important lesson for me. But I loved it. And I love washing dishes. And, I always say people say, you should go to this yoga retreat, or you should go to this camp, or you should do this. I say, the only thing I'm ever going to do at a place like that is wash dishes.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That's all I want to do. Hospital worker, dishes. Like, just give me I'm a dish pig. Let's be honest. I'm a dish pig.
It's the original pit,
Yeah, for sure. It kind of stinks and rags get moldy and stuff, and you kind of, you gotta still do it. But it's important to have those jobs. Parents out there listening, any kid needs a job that's like basically, the worst. And then they'll always be happy with whatever they do after that.
Yeah, definitely. Too, I like too. It's like, it's good to, we live in a world where people want to go up and up and up, and the dishwasher is the very, very bottom of the food chain. And there's something actually sometimes, but it's kind of nice almost being like just, this is my responsibility.
That's right.
I don't have authority in this situation.
It's task oriented. Yeah. You feel satisfied at the end of the shift because you can't leave until everything is completed. Yeah. So there's a satisfaction there's a sense of, you take pride in your work.
Yeah, that's a very optimistic way of looking at dishwashing. So, I'm with you 100%. So I guess speaking of optimism, I read an article that you wrote, I believe at either the end of last year or at the beginning of this year, where you talked about sort of not being about this idea of toxic positivity.
Right. I hear it all the time.
Yeah. And I'm kind of on the same page with you. And I'm just curious, but I also I personally struggle with knee-jerk cynicism,
which is funny. And humor is a real, and being cynical and being kind of skeptical. I think it's okay because it's something that allows us to protect ourselves. It protects our disappointment. Yeah. It really does. So it insulates us. And the same goes for optimism, just like being the class clown or people who always people who are like nervous laughers. It's self-protection. And I think positivity as a self-protection I think it's really healthy, actually. I mean, I'm biased, obviously, because I'm, trying to always be positive, even if things suck. And they've sucked many times in my life and will again. And generally when things really, really suck, I kind of just deal with that myself. I don't necessarily internalize it. But, it's nothing that I would ever share or spout on social media or post. It's just not, it's not my generation either.
Yeah.
The generations today, they post everything that bothers them. Even things that seem, perhaps insignificant, like, the mean lady at the deli, and then you know, or whatever the case. And not that that's not relevant or real to that person. It's just that, you know, the way I came of age as a female, particularly in the music business, I never complained, even in the most misogynistic, sadistic people's company. I mean, I never complained because I knew I had a responsibility to the chicks everywhere to represent. And I was going to be always positive, professional, never give the wrong idea. You know, I absolutely quit drinking because I just absolutely never wanted to be misinterpreted, especially when I was a young artist. It was really important to me not to, you know, be too hypersexualized, especially if that's not what I was putting out there. You know, it's so funny now because I think that really was a foundation for me growing up. I wasn't an adult really till I was about 40, but prior to that, I was young. I was like immature, like making all bad decisions all the time. I still make bad ones, but now I only blame myself for them.
Yeah, and have a positive outlook towards the bad decisions. 100%, I suppose. Yeah,
100%, and I believe in that. You know, there's I don't know, like I really think that it's okay to think that the cup is always half full, not half empty. I don't think that that's toxic, and I don't think that it is, you know, parallel to denial or anything like that. And I don't think it's, you know, especially when it comes to myself. When it comes to other people, certainly, you know, you can't be too positive if someone is, you know, dealing with something that's upsetting for them or stress or crisis. Obviously, you can't positive it out with them. You just can be a friend or be a listener or try and help in some way. But yeah, I don't think positivity is toxic. I just don't. I just can't. I just don't think that.
Yeah, and it's, you know, there's this idea that it's that by preaching it on behalf of yourself means that you're encouraging others to follow that philosophy, but that's not necessarily true. You
know? No, absolutely not. Because there's a lot of people, and you know, in my own circle of friends, who love to be negative. They live for it. They love it.
Yeah. Me too.
Because it's a habit, and sometimes again, it's possibly self-protective in a way. You know, I have my partner Snake is notoriously grouchy, notoriously dour look on his face, and everyone thinks it's very funny. Because it's just, you know, he's just never smiles and all this stuff, and it becomes a bit of a joke after a while.
Yeah.
But that's just how he's built, and this is how I'm built. You know, it's pretty funny. I'm an elevator talker. I'm sure it comes to no surprise. But like my sister and, for example, my partner are absolutely, they would die if I started talking to people in the elevator. They would just be like, dying, like, oh my God, will you please stop talking? They just
what would you say to someone in the elevator? What would be like your go-to? Like,
wow, I like your shoes, or how old is your dog, or oh, look at your dog, can I pet your dog, or boy, it's cold, did you have to shovel today? Like, it's just, it never ends. It never ends. I can't not do it. I mean, they could probably put bets on it.
Yeah. You're the Canadian stereotype, I suppose.
Oh, it's so terrible. And I can sit there like this. I have to. It's just like, I don't care. And sometimes people, like, even last week, I was going down to my parkade because we live in a high rise here in Toronto right now. And this girl was in the elevator with me. And you know, I walked in, she was already in, you know, everybody's masked. You're only allowed 2 people in the elevator, by the way. I've always jumped right in, but I asked first. And so I went in there and she was on her phone in the elevator. I don't know how old she was. You know, everyone's the same, adult. She was an adult. And she had like flip-flops on. I guess there's a manicure place near my apartment building. And she had like fancy toes. She was pretty fancy looking. And I was like, ooh, wow, you know, your toes look so great. Did you get them downstairs? Nothing, not a word. Didn't even acknowledge me. And I just thought, and I never said anything after that. And then I thought, that was very awkward. I should have like continued to go, oh, well, anyway, if you go to the place next door or something, so, but
Yeah.
no, I didn't. I just was like, okay, no problem. She's
Yeah.
not talking to mommy.
Maybe she had those AirPods in. Maybe
It's possible. Those are very obvious looking though. I
that's
always
true.
wanted them. I think they came with my iPhone 11 or something. I'm pretty confident I threw them out. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Seems like an easy
So
thing to do.
yeah, I think that I didn't understand. And I mean, every phone you get, every iPad, every laptop comes with those. How many do you really need?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty confident I lost them or threw them away. And then since then, I've been chasing the dragon about it, going, oh, well, maybe I should buy those. Wait a minute, they're like $250. Forget it. I don't need them. I'm good. Like these ones this is from the airplane.
they're
It's like,
functional though, right?
yeah, because they're black. They don't show glaringly,
Yeah.
to do a zoom like the white cord does. But yeah, my manager has really fancy ear like Bluetooth
Yeah.
things. So does Snake, but
I
yeah.
always like sound like in a room. I don't know why. I do listen to music on headphones and talk to
Mm,
people, but I've always preferred it in a room. You know what I mean?
yes, me as well. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trained to do Zoom on headphones though, because it's usually very loud wherever I am.
Right. Yeah. That
And
makes sense.
today is no different because I am in my apartment and my partner constantly has a din that exists. It's either F is for family, Family Guy, or one of the Avengers million movies, or somebody
Okay.
that is always the din that's happening besides him mixing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
very, very cartoon oriented, I guess.
And I was just like loud, a high volume, so
Yeah.
it's hard to hear over it.
Something I'm curious about is this kind of ties into the positive philosophy is like you are of multimedia, you know, um,
Multi.
media. Yes, like not just music, I should say, you know.
I understand. I do feel like I'm multi-medium. I think that music was the place where I found the opportunity to get on a stage. And I think that's why it was a good fit for me. I always wrote terrible poetry, like every other girl in grade 6. And lyrics were a great outlet for me. And to be able to pair those with being in these bands was like finally an outlet for all this like terrible writing, like forlorn, lovesick writing I always did.
Yeah.
And it was just a really good fit. I like painting. I don't do it as much as I used to. I used to do a lot of painting, but I had a lot of space when I lived in Vancouver, so it was
Yeah.
a different space that I lived in. And yeah, I love writing. I really do. I think of writing all the time. I would like to write books in all of my dead dogs' voices, for
Okay.
example. So I mean, I always have ideas, but anyone can do that. I think that I have had a WordPress for years that I keep paying for, but I don't know the password. I've never even logged into
Yeah.
it. Same with blogs and stuff like that. I think it would be a great outlet for a person. Um, but I don't know. I like everything. I like doing just about everything.
So you're not a subscriber to spreading yourself too thin. I'm not either, to be clear. But
I tend to do one thing at a time. I do get, like anyone, I think I would get overwhelmed. Right now, we're finishing a record that was finished already twice. And then, of course, the pandemic. So
yeah.
that allowed us the opportunity and the time just to go tinker with it a little more. And then we wrote another 10 songs. And then we just went into, and it's like, and now basically it's going to be a triple record by the time it comes out, because why not? Because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. So it's like, there are one thing about the times that we live in is it's limitless. The amount of music you can release. You don't have to stick to the record companies. Well, we like to put 10 or 11 records on a song, on a album, please. Now there's no rules at all. You can release a single every week if you want to. There's just no rules. So
Yeah. And you
triple
can like
record.
not adhere to genre necessarily if you're not sort of pigeonholed by a label. At
Yes.
least. Like, and your audience,
100%.
if you have an audience that just likes you for you can do whatever the hell you want. Basically.
That's good. I hope that is going to be the truth. I've been very lucky over the years being able to kind of make their albums all a little bit eclectic. Every song is kind of different from one another. And definitely with the new record, it's that times a million. I mean, we have a thrash metal song. We have,
Okay.
some very sparse piano ballads. And yeah, it's just, I can't wait to finally get it out there because I feel like we've been sitting on it for so long.
Do you have a release date?
No, we did twice already. We had a release date we were going to do in the fall of 2020. And then, partly it was COVID. And then just basically there was so much social unrest that summer. There was an awakening, a
Yeah, big
racial
time.
uprising, a justice movement that happened. And to me, it just was like, this is way more important than
Yeah.
a Bif Naked record, man.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm just
Kinda
not, I'm
tone
not
deaf,
interested.
Yeah.
Read the room partly, but also because I was not interested in anything else but the movements that were happening. And then, once 2020 was ending and we were heading into 2021, we released the second single that we had delayed for 6 months, which was Broken to Your Car. And and then where we are here in Ontario, then it went into lockdown again, and then it went into a stay-at-home order. So things went from bad to worse, and everyone was, and all the tours got canceled. Our Buck Cherry tour got pushed off again, and it was just like, oh my goodness. And then I just thought, people are flipping out, people are stressed, everyone's losing their jobs. I don't really want to put out a Bif Naked record. And that was just, and so as time goes on, now it's a running joke because everyone's like, well, it's kind of like the end of the world every year. I'm like, well, but I'll just release all the songs that we've been writing. So, it'll be like 30 songs or more.
And then you kind of get a blank slate with no like hangers on that you have to think about and be like, this song was pretty good. Maybe this could have been on the record. And it's just
right. Exactly. Yeah. Put it all out there. There's a lot of stuff that we've been sitting on for a long time. So it would be fun to just have it all released.
Yeah. Cool. I got one more question. What's inspiring you right now in general? Like what, in any music, it's the most generic question ever, but
Oh, it's not a generic question. Everything inspires me. So I think it's a really important question. There's a book called The Art of Happiness that a fan actually told me he was reading. And even though I had always kind of done dives into reading a lot of different books on theology, I love theology. I don't think I love religion per se. I think I love people's need for it. And I think that is just partly I blame my parents for that because they were squares and missionaries.
Your parents were missionaries, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I blame my dad because he just basically taught us about every religion and encouraged us to always explore, which I did. I mean, Krishna punks were right up my alley when I was a young person, of course, and then just over the years,
a Wikipedia rabbit hole on that subject.
Oh my goodness, it's so interesting.
It's
ultimately,
bizarre.
it is bizarre, and the older I get, the more the different lens I look at it with, and it's just kind of like, and again with Gen X, a lot of these guys, it's still all the same. It's still all the same. Nothing's changed. Their devotion has never waned. And I think that's interesting and also very noble and authentic because that's authentically who they are. And it's just cool. It's really cool. But right now I'm still inspired by Buddhism. I always will be. I think it's really rad. There's a guy named Robert Thurman, who I just admire so much. I think that living out here in Ontario after living in Vancouver for 30 years, which was my entire adult life. A lot of people just were like, why would you do that? But you're so beautiful, da da da. But I fell in love with Toronto, and the area that we live in is technically, I think it used to be called South Etobicoke. And the reason I like it is because we have BMXs. Of course we do, because we're 50. And we ride around the back lanes, and there's a lot of illegal chop shops. And I'm obsessed with the mob and crime and criminals. I
Yeah.
always say I miss my calling as a cop. I would have loved that. I could never probably pass the POPAT or whatever the fitness test is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would probably be a very terrible cop. I wouldn't want to give anybody tickets or anything. But it's just been fascinating. And it's beautiful out here. There's cardinals all the time. They are hilarious. They flirt with you. The songbirds out here are just incredible. I had in my life, I have never really heard so many songbirds. I mean, it sounds so silly and simple, but it's amazing. And this area, I'm sure it's probably the same in New England. I'm sure the whole area is like that. But because I had always lived on the West Coast, there's no cardinals. I don't think there's any cardinals in Vancouver.
Not that I've ever noticed. No.
Yeah, it's been really cool getting to know stuff like that. And there's a lot of nature here. We live right on the lake, and the lake's so big, it's might as well be the ocean.
Yeah.
It's massive. So it's been really nice. I like summer. I don't like rain.
Yeah, I'm with that. Did this glitch out?
And finally, I'm getting homesick. Finally, I'm getting homesick.
Of Vancouver?
Yeah. Finally, it took me a couple years, but yeah, we do miss it a lot.
Yeah, I lived there in the summer, and it was in Vancouver, and I liked it. I didn't love it.
Where are you now?
I'm in Victoria.
Oh, I see. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I love it here, honestly. I was born in Winnipeg, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I wasn't born there, but I grew up there. Came of age there, I guess. When did you move to Victoria?
When I was 14.
I
13?
see.
Yeah.
I see. So your parents are out there too.
Yeah, we're all
Very nice. Victoria is amazing.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
beautiful city. Yeah. You don't have to go to Vancouver. BC is beautiful in general, but the island is really special.
Yeah, there's a bustle
Really
in these big
special.
cities that just brings me down,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Toronto has that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. It's very isolating though. And because we live in South Etobicoke, it's just so different. It's so different from living in Toronto. And we've made friends here that have come over, and they just don't understand why we live here. They just don't understand. They're like,
You got to show them the chop shops.
They're like, why don't you live in the city? We're like, come on. And besides, here it's like, I mean, it's such a melting pot. BC is very, very interesting demographic, unlike anywhere else in Canada.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
And Toronto isn't just such a melting pot. It's just been so interesting living here. Very, very interesting. But yeah, we're really looking forward to coming back to the island. I don't know. I'm not sure that Doug Fury, who was my longtime guitar player, I played with Doug for 15 years, and then he went and had a studio for 15 years. And he'll be performing with me in Sydney, along with Snake and Chico, who's my drummer from my third band when we were 21.
Nice.
I don't know that Doug has been to the Mary Winspear before. Even though we played many times over the years in Victoria and Nanaimo and like all the stops. But yeah, it's going to be really, really nice to go there.
Cool. And it's the tour is called the Songs and Stories, right?
Well, that's what the show we're doing in Sydney is an acoustic show, which is a lot of the songs are kind of introduced via storytelling through the book that I wrote, Bif Naked, which now to me is like hilarious because it came out in 2016. I feel like I've lived 10 lifetimes since then.
Yeah.
A little bit of misadventure here and there. It's a way different show than the rock show. It's we laugh, we cry. I love it. I usually, I might go sit in the audience, but now because it's COVID, I'm not allowed to probably do all this stuff.
We'll see what it's like.
Yeah, we do lots of stuff. One of the last times we did a Songs and Story tour, I fractured both of my my tibias. Yeah, on the stage. Long story. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, but that's okay. We got through the show, and even the little. Oh, sorry. This is Ace. Yeah. So this is Grace Freely, who was sleeping. So we had to do a show at the Rose Theater in Brampton. And because of COVID, they had nobody to kind of, they had no staff. So I had to bring the dog on the stage in her little house, like in her little
Yeah.
carrying case, and we put it underneath our table because we have to have a table because the guys, they drink wine to try and numb the pain of how much I'm talking. Really.
Yeah.
So they guzzle wine. And I'm also, we're seeing stories about like, just things in life, that were from the book, like, things that are sometimes kind of harsh. There's a particular song always drives Snake crazy about me running away from home, and I go into the story, and then we sing the song. I always cry, and these guys are so embarrassed. Do it every time, and he's just like, oh, I see him reach for the bottle every time. I'm like, you're just gonna have a headache, like. Really, it's not that big a deal. But he's heard the story a lot, so it's a very special show. I'm looking forward to it so much.
All right. Well, I gotta see it.
Oh, you have to come. You
Yeah.
have to come.
I think I will.
Let Eric know. Let Eric know, and I'm sure that we can put you on the guest list.
That would be awesome.
Of course.
Okay, I was supposed to tell you that Leah and Michelle send you a lot of love. Those are friends of mine.
Very nice. We'll tell them thank you.
I will. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, just really looking forward to coming to BC, and we were waiting, obviously, to hear all the restrictions, whether or not they were going to be lifted or changed or what was happening. And but we're committed now. My flights are booked.
Very good.
And we're coming, so I can't wait. Hopefully,
I think
and here it's freezing.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to be in BC.
It's a lovely day today in BC.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah.
Here it was -13, which isn't as bad as Winnipeg. My sister dealt with -34 this morning.
Oh man.
I know. I can't remember it. Since
I don't
so long.
remember it either.
Yeah, I can't really remember. But here it's like it's not often that cold because it's southern Ontario. It's kind of, but they had a dump of snow and now it's cold. So, but it'll be spring in like, 6 more weeks, 8 weeks?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not long.
Cool.
Glass is half full.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you.
Thank you.